am always online और पवन सर ने मुझे एक मैसेज भेजा, immediately I will reply him back to show my alertness, to show my obedience and everything. Now habit of, so typical style of internet use, those who are more into a non-essential use of internet use, all the time in online communication, immediate reply and using 24 hours, 24/7, compromising personal life. If that internet use is there, then only this vulnerable factor would go on that side. If that catalyst is not there, it cannot multiply. So this catalyst is most important in spite of having many vulnerable factors. So ladies and gentlemen, with these dynamics, by understanding the psychological construct, 10 psychological constructs I discussed with you, with vulnerability I discussed with you, and with the catalyst acting on this vulnerability, it can definitely lead to addictive type of a behavior, and it is broadly classified into two. One is called as a cyber abuse and other is a cyber addiction. So cyberbullying, cyber stalking, creating fake accounts, hacking, and even a cyberchondria is a part of a cyber abuse, and rest 8 addictions are there. They comes under a category called as a cyber addictions or internet addictions. Whenever we visit the literature, you may find n number of terms: problematic internet use, this use, pathological internet use, but they are all synonymous with the cyber addictions and the internet addictions. Under this category of the internet addictions, we have 8 addictions. All the psychological constructs which we have discussed is important over here, along with the biological factors. I forgot to mention, when we discuss about the comorbidity, there are many studies that even a biological factors becomes the vulnerability for the cyber addictions. So a reward circuitry which travels from a ventral tegmental area to nucleus accumbens to the prefrontal cortex, it has seen that those who are internet addict and undergone FDG PET, there is activation of this reward circuitry as we have noticed in other addictions. So similar pattern of the biological vulnerability is there. So these 8 addictions are there, like cyber sex addiction, online gaming addiction, online gambling, online stock trading, online shopping, computer addiction, that is non-internet based, cyber relational addiction, that's the social media addictions, and information overload, excessive web surfing, information and the database search. So whatever the literature we review from here or there, but you will find these 8 categories are there when we talk about the cyber addiction. Now, is this a valid diagnosis? Yes. For the students, is this a valid diagnosis, cyber addiction? There is always questions because diagnostic criteria are not there. So yes, now it's a valid diagnosis. It is not placed under a separate category, but international classification ICD-11 has 2 disorders like gaming and gambling disorders under the category of disorders due to addictive behaviors. So there is no separate category like cyber addictions, but they come under this category, that's disorders due to addictive behaviors. In a DSM-5, there is no separate category, but then it comes under a category called as unspecified disorders in the category of disruptive impulse control and the conduct disorder. Criteria which are developed for internet addictions. So again, let me be very honest. We are in a very nascent phase. Whoever must be running a cyber psychiatry clinic and seeing patients, we all use one common test in assessment. Dr. Lokeshwar will talk about it. That's Kimberly-Young's internet addiction test, right? So earlier it was a 8-atom scale of Dr. Young's internet addiction test. Now it is a 20-atom scale. So most of the research, if you see, research findings, if you see, you will find this particular, the results are based upon the use of this particular scale, which is a 20-atom scale. That's developed by a Kimberly-Young. She is an Australian lady, and since 1980 onwards, she is working on this field. And I would say, she has an immense contribution in the field of cyber psychiatry. Second, be very honest, you have all noticed the diagnostic criteria for pathological gambling or a gambling addictions. So all internet addictions criteria are based upon the diagnostic criteria for the pathological gambling. Literally they are similar to the pathological gambling. So these are the criteria which are followed up or which are followed in most of the research studies, and they are synonymous to the criteria of the pathological gambling and pathological gaming. Now ICD-11 has started acknowledging pathological gambling and pathological gaming with the name online gaming addiction and online gambling addictions, and in a near future I would say all these 8 cyber addictions would be included in DSM-5 as well as in ICD-11. So to be very brief, at least 5 of the following sign symptoms you can debate about the duration, but in a pathological gambling we have a duration of at least 12 months. But here don't ask me this question because no one is clear. It's a cross-sectional type of the diagnosis in most of the research studies. So preoccupation with the internet, increasing amount of the time spent online, failure to cut back with the concomitant restlessness or withdrawal, a moodiness or a depression when you are not there, staying online longer than originally intended, running the risk of losing job, relationship, other opportunity because of the internet use, and lying to conceal the extent of internet use or using internet to escape the negative feelings. That last atom was not there when initially internet addiction test was formulated. But over a time, Dr. Kimberly Ainsley realized that we are not able to pick up the internet addicts with this 8 atom scale because we are missing some of the aspects. And what was that some of the aspect? The person who is addicted would always consider, नहीं मैं ऐसा नहीं करता हूँ, नहीं मैं इतना यूज नहीं करता, अरे तुम हर बार मोबाइल के साथ देखते हो, नो नहीं इतना नहीं यूज करता हूँ, मैं जब बाहर आता हूँ तो ही यूज करता हूँ. So that concealing habit of the addiction was also a common feature of those who were internet addicts, and that's the reason she has modified her scale, and now this last atom is a very well part of the 20 atom internet addiction test by Kimberly again. So, ladies and gentlemen, understanding very little that the prevalence studies are varied and each has a different methodology, and it could be with the highest of 27.7%. It's high in younger males, in Asian populations, and in a male gender. With this, I hope I could take you from a journey of understanding what is a cyberspace, it's a real space, by making you understand the psychological constructs, how cyberspace is addictive and different from a psychoactive substances. I could take you out from a vulnerable groups and the cyber effect and the current understanding of cyber addictions. With this, I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
The next topics, I think you are slowly trying to introduce them also. Thank you, Dr. Sushil. And we will take up some questions quickly.
The reference to the potential for getting addiction and actually in real life that you see. Because not just children, we presume that only children and teenagers are getting addicted, but it's also true of adults also, the patterns of usage and patterns of addiction.
Yes. I would like to comment on. Thank you so much, sir, for this question. Fall prey to pedophiles. They fall prey to hacking and even the financials and everything hijacks. Those who are digitally immigrants, like the adults and all, and he was anyway interested into this particular field, he would watch more. So slowly under this vulnerable group, children, adolescents and elderly would also come.
Explain the ubiquitous nature of the internet or the cyberspace and the unique way of the individual, how they are using the catalyst role, what you are the proclaimed presentation there. So overall, that's the mediate the, whether it's say outcomes, whether it's say abuse or harmful effects or it's addiction. So in that sense, still I am having the question that, like how many people are having the question that, whether they are addiction to what? Addiction to medium or content. And that's one area. And using of umbrella term, the cyberspace is a very vague one. So whether it's equally equates with the internet cyberspace is equal internet, or it's just for the computer, somebody engaged with the computer activity rather than they depend upon the internet. So there are the various umbrella terms. What is the consensus, your opinions?
Yes. Sir, under the cyber addictions, the seventh was computer addiction, non-internet based. Okay. So the umbrella term is a screen related addictions. But as cyber term is so popular, means William Gibson's neuromancer, right? So from there, the cyber word is so popular that these addictions are mentioned. But umbrella term and more appropriate terms are the screen related addictions. And sir, if you visit the Indian Psychiatric Society websites where we have developed the recommendations of the screen use, the title is Recommendations of Screen Use, and that is freely available on our websites. We had developed that. So it's a screen related addictions would be very, very appropriate. I forgot your other question, sir. One factor, catalyst becomes a factor. So it's not a gadget which is a problem. It's the person who is using that. So now imagine same gadget is available for Sushil, same gadget is available for Minaz, and same gadget is available for Ashok sir. Now, if we allow all of three to use that in the same way, it's not that all of them will be addicted. But here, if the Sushil is very isolated person, has a very poor relationship, I'm a lonely person, now my personality factors would attract me more towards that gadget than the rest of tools. Now if the catalyst means my internet using factors are in a such a way that I have access, or in a way you say, if I'm now vulnerable, but I don't have access, if I use internet very sparingly, now my pathology will not be related to internet, but because of this, my using style, now it would act like a catalyst. So I would say vulnerable group and internet is like a catalyst, and it's an addiction of mind. It's not an addiction of a gadget, it's just a one, I would say object. It's us we are using.
Again, my basic question about that.
Okay. और ये काम में आ सकता है, download it. ये काम में आ सकता है, download it. Till a cyber 6 addiction, you can say it's a content based. Okay, stock trading you can say content based. But what about the last category, where only data search? Now a new disorder would add, maybe in a next few years it would add, that is called as a compulsive communication disorder. And that would also come under this category. Now compulsive communication disorder, you have no job, still you feel like calling people because access is available, WhatsApp is available, it is affordable. So now some of the factors here, some of the addictions are content based, and some of the factors are only medium based.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Minas?
When you were talking about this people who are born after cyber thing, so don't you think that the world will normalize after some time? All these things will normalize, and people only who are vulnerable will remain, because most of us will be using cyberspace like we are using a normal space, we all will be using cyberspace one day or the other. So don't you think that things will normalize and we don't call this as addiction?
Yes, I completely agree with you, because consuming alcohol, few of them are addicted to the alcohol. Okay. So this is not true. Okay, not everyone drinks alcohol and not everyone is addicted. But now 100% of the humans is available here. We all use cyberspace. And in spite of that, if you take average of the prevalence, it's from a 0.2% to 27%, take an average of a 13%. If 100 people are using, 13 are addicted. So if 100 people, they start consuming alcohol every day, I think more than 13 would be addicted to that. Over the time, because now all these social media platforms, they are governed by the laws, and cyber security, they are pushing, means all the agencies which are working on this field, even a WHO, they are pushing on them. If you are providing that this platform, provide the security, provide the time phenomena. So maybe in the future you will find that when you are using WhatsApp, you will suddenly get advertisement that you have used it for more than 2 hours. Okay. So automatically with this added protection, yes, it will normalize. Percentage of cyber addiction would always be there, but I would say with this added advantage, with these preventive strategies, whatever the boom is there, it won't be there in the future. But again, my statement is with the doubt, because every 2 years something new comes up. Okay, so when we were 4 years back, few years back, I would say.
To give the mementos to our Dr. George Reddy Garu and Dr. Kushal Garu. Alcohol addiction, suicidal behavior, tobacco awareness films, and COVID-19 College Hyderabad. He has done more than 15 publications and has been awarded Best Speaker Award in the first National Conference on Addiction Psychiatry and Best AIMS Research Award in 2019 and Achievement of Addiction Medicine Certificate from the International Society of Addiction Medicine, Canada.
Creating human they are planning to create a space for living on the moon and in space. So here it is cyberspace and that space. These two are the people and government are spending crores of rupees, billions of rupees on research and development in these two fields. See here, as we psychiatrists, are we really talking about the cyber addiction or internet addiction in a positive connotation, or use internet use or cyber use in a positive connotation, negative connotation? Are we really afraid of the future generations? And are we really afraid of the impact of taking it in a negative or positive connotation, like as the impact of cyberspace on youth? So today's topic is very apt, and I congratulate once again the organizers for selecting such a beautiful topic. And I know these circles will definitely justify this, and I over to Chen.
Good morning to all. Good morning to all. Myself, Dr. Naveen. Today's topic on the impact of cyberspace on social structure and dynamics and future of psychiatry. So, the opt topic to discuss and to know gain the knowledge from the expert speakers like Dr. Sujit Circle sir. He is a renowned speaker in this area. He is a associate professor in the Institute of Psychiatry from Calcutta. He is currently editor Bengal Journal of Psychiatry, associate editor in Indian Journal of Psychiatry and Indian Journal of Psychological Medicines, and he is also contributes 60 publications in the Indian literature, and as well as he published in the international peer-reviewed journals also. So here, cyberspace, how it's altered the individual lives, the personal life and as well as social lives in terms of the structure and dynamics of interactions, and as well as how it was relevant to discuss and to understand for our future of psychiatry in terms of the clinical care, research, all aspects. Very worthy topic to discuss. For example, the small two topics I would like to introduce here before expert is talking there. So here, the just earlier speaker told the ubiquitous nature of this internet and as well as cyberspace for individual lives. So it means we need to give the more of the divided attention on the various platforms in the internet or cell phone or gadgets. So we need to one time we have the concentration on the WhatsApp, we concentrate on the YouTube, concentrate on the social chat. So there are the needed to more and more very strenuous pressure on the divided attention of our brain resource. So how it impact in the individual reactions and social lives. Then second thing is it's a super sensitivity of the transactive memory, because in PG times nowadays we have surf our research articles very fluently. So in that matter, any matter we can able to sensitize or stimulate with the having of information. But this memory is having of in long term of the individual, how it impacted. Whether it's the transactional memory will be how it impacted the long term potentials of memories, and how it's impacted in the individual lives. So with these all aspects, we need to worthy to introduce the topic. Dr. Sunil Sarkar, please continue the next.
A big thank you to the chairpersons. My special thanks to the, and I must start with a disclaimer that I am not an expert or a regular speaker in this area, but definitely being given this topic and in my effort to do some justice to it, I learned a lot of things. So that is a big thing. And obviously I must congratulate Dr. Sushil and Dr. Sudhir Bhave for having created such a nice resource material for anyone who is interested in cyber psychiatry, and I myself have drawn some references from the chapter, although I don't have the book, but at least I communicated to Dr. Siddharth Sarkar, who has written a topic basically similar to today's heading, the first part at least. So with this, I will briefly deal with what is cyberspace. We had questions of that also. Then we will talk about how the behavior has changed after the new generations got hooked onto cyberspace, how it has created changes, or it is all continuously creating changes in the social dynamics, and finally how it could impact the future of psychiatry. Actually, in the flyer, the time given was 1 hour, so I have a little more number of slides, but I know beyond 30 minutes it gets boring. So I will try to restrict within 30-35 minutes. See, I have put this timeline because I found this very interesting. How internet came into being, how such a thing which has completely changed our lives came into being. See, I will not go into the depth of this timeline, but I will just briefly say a few things. The whole idea of creating a medium in which one academician could transmit the files to another academician sitting far abroad and get the material either archived or peer reviewed was one of the main inspirations for creation of internet. This is the academic inspiration. And it was majorly from theoretical physicists who do a lot of publication peer review process. So they found out a method of encryption in which they could actually transmit files from one computer to another initially, and then to abroad, again through a system of encrypted messaging. This was one. And at the same time, there was the American defense, which had developed a similar kind of a system. And finally, it was the discovery of modem and different communications. Finally, the internet came into being in around 1993, I think. And this person, he developed it in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and previously he was working in CERN, so in Europe. So after that, he migrated to MIT, and the first internet came into being. The biggest revolution of internet was, it was decided that everything would be free for all. So there was no, there was no effort to copyright it, there was no effort to ask for money. So the biggest advantage was you could have more and more of information, and everything was apparently free. And that is what revolutionized and made it popular in household, and its use increased in leaps and bounds. So I think Sushil has already said, William Gibson coined the term cyberspace in one of the models. Today, loosely, what we mean by cyberspace is the virtual environment of information and interactions between people. So, a global domain within the information environment consisting of the interdependent network of information technology infrastructures, including the internet, telecommunication networks, computer systems, and the embedded processors and controllers. But for us, it is basically the entire space that is provided by the internet, and this is practically what cyberspace is all about. So, the problem statement, or rather to what extent it is being used. So 749 million. So 74 crores and 90 lakhs of Indians, as per the humans have transformed the internet from being a tool of for communicating information to a tool of social interaction. Initially it was just for passing information, purely academic or military purposes, which was used confidentially. Now we have made it into a tool for social interaction because of its many advantages. About 95% of all information prevailing in the globe are digitized. See, despite the number being 749 million of Indians, less than 50% of Indians use the internet. So that way we are far behind even countries like Iran and China, let alone US. What are the social media then? In cyberspace, we talk about social media. So what could constitute as social media? It could be collaborative projects, blogs, content communities where you just upload the content like YouTube, social networking sites, virtual game worlds where you play virtual games with mutual interaction, but the social interaction is relatively less. And then you have virtual social worlds where actually you take up identities, interact, and you grow families, stay there. So these things are also there. And messaging services, which have been very, very popular of late, and now from messaging it has gone to group video calls and so many other things. So this is all what social media comprises of. So Facebook has 357 million users in India. The essential features of SNS, this is very important, semi-public profiles by users. So you can construct semi-public profiles, creating a set of connections with others and ability to view to users' own connections and also the connections made by other users. So you are there, your father is there on the social networking side, you can see how many friends he has got, how many, he can see how many you have got. So everything seems to be, apparently everything seems to be open and transparent. So they enable you to connect to your friends, colleagues and family members and share their memories between themselves through posts, photos and videos. So this direct interaction with so many people makes it so popular. You go to a conference, you post it, thousands see it at one go without making any effort to contact with them individually through any other app or any phone. So this is what makes social networking sites so popular, so addictive. And other than social networking, as I was saying, the virtual world is of two types. One is the virtual gaming sites and another is virtual social world. So this is interesting. The virtual social worlds let the users to freely select their behavior and allow the people to live a virtual life similar to real life. This is real addictive, with no restriction for the possible interactions, and it thus permits an unlimited range of self-presentation with increased intensity and experience. You can marry somebody, you can raise a family, you can do what not, and obviously you can always, like many other social networking sites, you can assume a new identity also. So you can do whatever you could probably not do in real life. So this is multiplayer games. Very common, very popular among the young and the teenagers, which we are often unable to identify their addicting potential because we have never been exposed to it. So here is whether it is good or bad. There are studies which have said that video games can be good also. See, increase in aggression and violent behavior in real life of individuals playing as violent characters. This was the initial idea or initial studies, but subsequently a meta-analysis of 17 studies have shown that only there is a minimal risk of violence in those who are hooked onto violent video games. So there is no clear-cut or linear relationship that if you are into violent video games, you will actually be more violent in real world. Another thing is this many of these multiplayer games where you can devise strategies, cooperate with other people, they often help you imbibe certain skills which probably you would not have been able to do in one-to-one interaction with one or two people. So it is not without its advantages also, it's not altogether totally bad. This was in the book, chapter written by Siddharth. So what are the positive impacts? It's a positive impact of the games. See, in action games, improvement in attention and higher visual processing. In role-playing games, improvement in problem-solving skills, learning social skills. You actually face problems similar to real-life problems, and you tend to actually brainstorm and solve them. So it helps you in developing problem-solving skills. Strategic games, ability to adapt during failures, effectively filter out irrelevant information, enhance analytical skills and increased ability to learn new behavior. Puzzle games, again, frontal lobe. Cooperative games, it helps you in increasing your sociability and decrease your feelings of hostility. And sometimes they say it enhances leadership skills. We have all talked about the bad parts. Here is some of the advantages that have been documented in literature. See, this is important. Actually, someone asked, and Dr. Sushil talked about it. I will just spend a couple of minutes on this slide. See, basically, as per the researchers in the West, the basic digital divide, the digital natives and digital immigrants, basically digital immigrants are those people who are not regular or not very comfortable in cyberspace, and they usually spend only that much of time which is required to be necessary, so-called bare necessity on the internet. Otherwise, they are not very comfortable spending hours on the net. On the contrary, the digitally natives, they tend to do almost everything with the help of the net, whether it's shopping, whether it is chatting, whether it is socializing, everything. And they had actually put a dividing year of 1980. So they said, the Western researchers said, I mean basically the US based researchers, they said that anyone who is born prior to 1980 is more likely to be a digital immigrant, not very comfortable with the digital mode, and those who are born after 1980 are more likely to be digital natives. I personally feel, obviously Sushil we can discuss with Sushil later, I feel that it has got a lot to do with when internet was made available. So obviously if you talk about US, the year is 1980. If we talk about our country, maybe we have to make it a little later than that. So maybe those who are born up to 1990 would be the ones who would be, kind of digital immigrants rather than digital natives. And if you do not understand this concept, as a clinician, it would be very difficult to understand intergenerational conflicts between the son and the father or the grandson and the grandfather regarding essential and non-essential use. What they think is essential may not be shared by the younger generation. So, how the habits have changed? See, in the oblique, the first part is obviously the older generation, the digital immigrants, and this is the newer generation. See, space-related habits, they would like to spend their time reading books, magazines, watching TV, more contact with nature, and physical activity, walking, just going to the market and maybe getting a food, not just using Swiggy. And these people decrease physical activity, less social contact, and whatever is possible with the help of the cyberspace. Come to social functioning, face-to-face meetings, personal involvement, long-term relationship. See, this is a major cause of intergenerational conflict. The digital immigrants do not understand that how can relationship be formed just on a need basis and last for 2 to 3 days, and then the group is dissolved, and then they don't see their face or they don't interact each other anymore. Like many of the times they don't see their faces also. The older generation believes more of personal interactions, human touch, and longer term relationships, and it is just the opposite with the digital generation. So e-meetings, short-term relationships. And it is not that one is good or other is bad. See, if you are raising fund with the help of Keto or Milab for a social cause, you need not interact with the person after the job is done. So this is how the new generation thinks. Social contacts, I have already said. Attitude to technology. This is where the jhamela occurs. This is the main area. Technical novelties are feared as they disturb the usual mode of functioning. If you look at our seniors, maybe 65 plus, they would often be disturbed at the fact that they will have to upload something on the smartphone, because it usually disturbs their comfort level. On the contrary, the new generation is extremely comfortable using gadgets, electronic toys, and anything new in the gadget world is extremely welcome to them. So they don't fear it, they actually adopt it and they're looking forward to it. And functioning mode and values of learning. See, when you talk about the social change, long-term gratification as a value learning based on value and learning based on memory and concentration. See, these are the two areas where the problem with education between parents and children occur. The new generation or the digital generation many of the times do not know what is postponed gratification. If they do something, they need immediate gratification. It has to be immediately uploaded. It has to be immediately praised. The number of likes have to be immediately counted. There is no such thing कि अभी पढ़ाई करो, कुछ दिन बाद तुमको अच्छा result मिलेगा, तुम बड़ा आदमी बनोगे. So maybe that is there at the back of the mind, but the concept of immediate gratification is there, and that is one of the major causes of conflicts. And the newer, older generation believes that you should not do too many things at a time. Mostly one or two things are to be pursued at a time and to be pursued seriously. Whereas the other generation thinks that it is mostly multitasking based. They like multitasking, parallel processing. And when it comes to learning also, learning for them is not based on long-term concentration memory. Learning has to be based on novelty. If you cannot make the learning program or the learning paradigm very attractive to me, I will not learn. So learning has to be through gaming, through apps, and so many newer and newer modes. The typical textbook learning, that is why often results in a big problem. So this is, I think, the crux of the difference between the generations, and also the reason for the social change, which we should be aware. So social structure, as you can see, is the relationship between different groups in the social system. And traditionally, the community is formed in terms of space where we live, what we do, and through the family. So this traditional concept of community is totally now gone with the advent of the cyberspace. As Dr. Sushil was saying, if I like somebody who likes maybe gardening, maybe pedophilia, whatever, so I don't have to look around in my locality, because I may not find anybody. But I will find them maybe in some obscure European country. But with the cyberspace, is just a click away. So this concept of community that we know is gone. So with the introduction of the internet, the community is not limited to place-based interaction, and there is a shift towards the formation of a community on the basis of individual interests and values. Social change is the significant alteration within the social structure characterized by changes in cultural symbols, rules of behavior, social organizations, and value systems. Everything has changed. If your daughter is seeing the latest fashion trends, the latest piercings and tattoos in Insta photos, actually, and discussing with her peers, schoolmates, maybe that is what is becoming a part of her ideal value system. So maybe that is where the conflict is going to start. So you have so many role models, not necessarily the one with whom you are living in person. So this is creating the problem. And there is a scalable society. So you choose in a social media, you choose to what extent you are going to maintain relationship with what person. So if you are using social media like Snapchat, you are probably trying to communicate with close friends, maybe with WhatsApp chats also. Then in WhatsApp groups, or if you are using WeChat, then it is basically 20, 30, 40, maybe in the wards, maybe in a group of college, maybe for a function or something, and subsequently the group may dissolve. And in Facebook or Twitter, where you are interacting with a huge community on which you have actually lost count also. And when it comes to celebrities, they would rather count followers whom they would not even know whether they live or they die. So the entire relationship has become scalable on different terms, and that is how the social change is happening. It's still happening dynamically. Misrepresentation, I think this has been discussed. The concept of faking. So these are some of the things that was not so common in person-to-person interaction, but this is quite common. So you misrepresent your identity and you take up an identity which may be different from your age, gender, religion, whatever. There is instamacy, which is cyberspace-specific behavior, which denotes the instant, intimate connection that develops in a person towards the other person while beginning an online romantic relationship. You develop a sudden intimacy, so it's known as instamacy. Then there is this bystander effect, where actually in a general crowd, probably if a person is being hit or being bullied, some of the people might protest, but in an online community, there is a tendency to remain bystander, and rarely people protest unless it has been sharply demarcated between two groups. Otherwise, people prefer to remain bystanders when cyberbullying is taking place. And groupthink is basically how a particular online group influences the behavior of its members. Online disinhibition effect has already been told. Behavioral amplification and escalation has also been told. So if you have an unusual or an antisocial tendency or a behavior, that may be actually amplified by social media usage, primarily because of anonymity. Online syndication also, I think it has been discussed. In a group, if you are forming a community based on certain likes and dislikes. Cyberbullying, I think this has become a major cause of concern, has led to suicides also. So it is the aggressive behavior using electronic means, and this decreases confidence, increases school absenteeism and isolation, and may incur suicidal ideation in children. I have personally faced many patients, whose guardians have come with instances of cyberbullying, and incidentally, it has often happened that there was a small fight in the classroom, and subsequently it led to nothing happened thereafter, and then it led to cyberbullying in WhatsApp groups, shaming and cyberbullying. So it is very, very dangerous, especially in perspectives of children. The bullying can occur through text messages, phone calls, emails, messengers, and social networking sites. So this act has been done in India, sending offensive messages, causing insult, annoyance in social media, posting false communication for the menacing character is punishable under section 66A of amended IP Act. So this has come up. Online grooming, this is also very dangerous. Describes the behavior that tries to inspire confidence to the young user so that to be able to perform a secret meeting with the senior user with the intended outcome of sexual change the social life of the individual, social structure. It is confirm I googled today morning only to confirm.
And what was it?
No, I didn't check that. Must be definitely yes.
What I mean to say is that are we seeing sea surge of people using digital media?
I can't tell you based on exact homework, but what we have seen from most of the literature, there was a major change after the forced digitization, both in terms of economic needs, and it was doubly applicable in the COVID era. I think there is a definite search, but I will not be able to tell you the figures. If anyone can, is welcome.
I know figures.
It is 74 crores 90 lakhs of Indians using cyberspace. If you go by in terms of absolute numbers, it is 749 million. So that much.
Nice presentation, sir. Generation, cyber generation. In present generation, as you already mentioned, parents who are cyber immigrants are worried about their children using and spending more screen time and spending more time with cyber activity, internet activity. But here, as psychiatrists, when parents they express their worry and children are annoyed of their the parents stop them from using these gadgets or spending time in these things. Here, in this cyber generation, I think no one can win in their life without using internet. They must develop and expertise on using the cyberspace. And another thing is, can we call it as cyber personality traits, cyber-friendly personality traits, or cyber-friendly lifestyle. Okay, can you throw any light on cyber-friendly personality or cyber-friendly personality traits?
I haven't come across this term. I will come across this term. So actually what I feel is that obviously there are, if you go even by personality traits as per Costa and Macrae, so the ocean model, there are people who are always open to new experiences. So they would be more, even if they are born earlier, they would be ready to welcome, use this and use it to their advantages. Definitely, they will. But the problem is what we face. We had a long discussion among some of the clinicians in Calcutta, a closed door discussion regarding how much of screen addiction you are seeing, because this has almost become an epidemic-like thing after in the post-pandemic when everyone was forced to do online classes, the children. So what is the actual nature of the problem? Everyone is coming and complaining. So then, and there were some developmental psychologists who are working for several years. So we found out 2-3 things. One was this, the conflict of the generations. What the parents think as a non-essential usage is not at all thought of as a non-essential usage by the child. And the child has logical reasons for that. I may be reading a book on internet, on the mobile. I may be watching a match on the mobile. If I would have watched the same match on TV, because they are not allowing me to watch, they would not have counted as a screen time. So this is one side of the story. The second thing what we found out is, I think, I was not aware of this study, what Dr. Sushil said, we found the significant proportion, not a study, of ADHD people. They have a tendency to get hooked onto it. ADHD, high functioning autistic spectrum, the ones with average IQ, but so on the socialization front they are a little down and have an associated inattention and hyperactivity. They are another group who have a tremendous tendency to get glued to the net, and it is very, very difficult to actually bring them out of it. So these are the 2-3 take-home points which came out. So we decided that no matter when they come up with a complaint, it is always better to have a standard evaluation for a psychiatric disorder, not to consider net addiction as a disorder, but rather a epiphenomenon of something which is elsewhere. This was one, and another was to consider the parental point of view and the child's point of view and decide that probably the child may not be that wrong also.
Just so the net
It
came down to 43%, and 2021 again it has raised to 47%. So it's fluctuating.
So impressive car. So I should be handed over to all.
Medical Sciences, Marketpalli.
He is a behavioral neurologist and neuropsychiatrist. He is a behavioral neurologist and neuropsychiatrist. He is the founder of Buddhi Clinic and Neurofish Foundation. He is a pioneer of integrated and holistic care and rehabilitation for brain and mind. He has taken on multiple international leadership roles in the clinical science and treatment of epilepsy, dementia, and neuropsychiatric disorders. He is the immediate past president of the International Neuropsychiatric Association and the editor of Global Approach series for Cambridge University Press and Neuropsychiatry across cultures for Oxford University Press.
Thank you, Dr. Introducing the speaker. I think the entire crowd is looking forward to this topic after having been spoken to about the addictions and the general description of the cyberspace and the direction in which it is going. This word cyber psychopath is actually evincing a lot of interest and everybody is eagerly looking forward to your talk. Basically, just to put things in perspective, now psychopathy is something which is a term which has just come about 150 years ago. Partly it has come from the mainstream psychiatry and also from the criminal justice system. The word psychopath has come. And essentially it refers to people who do not care too much for the values of society, the moral values and other things. Now, with the internet having come in, see, psychopathy always is pertinent to the context in which it is occurring. So, for instance, what is psychopathy in one subsection of society may not be psychopathy in the substance. In the substance, in a middle class family, even stealing 10 rupees would be a grave sin. Whereas, in the slum person, somebody steals chota mota things would actually be appreciated for being smart. So there is always a context to psychopathy. And the word of cyberspace, it actually throws up immense opportunities. The psychopathic personality is always in the societies. We have given a term for it, the antisocial psychopathic personality. And how now they have evolved, how they are morphing and making use of the cyberspace for other terms which have already been introduced like cyber stalking, bullying. We are looking forward to a very interesting talk from Dr. Krishnamurthy. Sir.
Thank you.